Hello and welcome to the Daily Brief. I am your host, the Mexican Conservative. Today I want to talk to you about Mexicans who are conservatives, Hispanics who are conservative. There's something that you have to understand about us. Being Hispanic or being Mexican, you are told your entire life that you are to be Democrat or liberal or liberal leaning or in the middle. A moderate. You're not supposed to be conservative because being conservative is being the enemy. People who were conservative leaning or had that type of mindset could be ostracized from your family, treated differently, talked down about during political seasons and election time. I grew up in my family, luckily, I grew up in the northern parts of the United States. Up here in the Midwest where I live, being conservative and being Hispanic is not as big of a stigma as it is in other parts of the country. But it still comes with the people who came from that area. My grandfather was very, very liberal, very, very Democrat. He would get into screaming matches if he found out your political beliefs, which is a very disturbing and upsetting situation, especially when you're young during election time and you come out and the whole family's together and it's election year and you go from one room to the other and it could be quiet talking and then screaming and yelling and you're an idiot and F you and get out of my house and that's how my grandpa was. He also wasn't exactly the picture of being the patriarchal leader of the family either. He was not exactly the greatest guy. But that's the type of environment I grew up in. All of my family that I know, for the most part, on my mother's side, which is the Hispanic, the Mexican side, because my father was white and my mother was Mexican. On that side of the family, they're all very Democrat, very liberal. And then on my father's side, never knew my father. He left when I was a kid. So I never knew him, never knew that type of family's political beliefs, but I was always surrounded by my mother's side of the family who was very, very Democrat, very, very liberal. And they just pump it into your head when you're young that this is the way you got to believe. This is the way you got to think. This is the way things are. And there's nothing you can do about it. As I started to get older, when I was in school, I started developing more of a moderate mentality. When you were a kid, you just did what you were told. And you believed what you believed because that's just what you grow up around. But when I got into school, I was exposed to a little bit more conservative beliefs. The man that my mother married, who I call my father, who my dad, who actually raised me, was very conservative. My mother was still more liberal, kind of in the middle, kind of in that mindset. And when I started going to school, I was exposed to more conservative ideas, but still there was a very heavy liberal area. The school I went to was very, very liberal, but there were teachers there, surprisingly, who were conservative. And the more I started to understand, the more I started to listen to, and the first real election that I ever experienced and ever paid attention to was Bush versus Gore. It was because it was everywhere. You couldn't miss it. And I started to understand that I started to identify more with the conservative side. I was still in the middle. But I started going, these conservatives, these Republicans, they make sense on some of this stuff. I meet them halfway. But there isn't a halfway candidate, and there never will be. Surprise, surprise. Polarize the nation, And then each successive election, I started to find myself more and more on the conservative camp. More and more, I'd find myself agreeing with the conservatives, going, yeah, you know what, that makes sense. And then it came to a head in this last election. It came to a head because this time people got aggressive. I had members of my family tell me that I was a race traitor because I voted for Trump and because I supported Donald Trump in this last election, because I believed in building a wall, and I believed in immigration reform, and I believed in the fact, look, I'm an American Mexican, okay? I'm an American first and a Mexican second. That's just who I am, and that's the way I believe, and that's the way I look at the world. When you have a lot of illegals coming over, I believe in a certain amount of, help them a little bit. But so many of these systems that liberals and Democrats have put into place have now made these illegals coming over the reason that they're coming over to take advantage of the system. I see it up here. The biggest key for me from when I noticed it was happening was when I was down on my luck. I was on food stamps, didn't like to. I was always raised, you work hard, and you keep working. You don't take government assistance. You find a way to earn your keep and work. Well, for a little while, I had went on food stamps, needed food. Just couldn't. Bills needed to be paid. I had unemployment and I was paying the bills, but it wasn't enough to get food. So I went on food stamps. And I was in a Save-A-Lot, and I noticed this girl, she had a full cart, she was dressed really nice, jewelry, all kinds of stuff. She had a fancy cell phone. I couldn't afford a cell phone. I had an Obama phone that they gave to me for free, so I can make phone calls and, make contacts with people as I was trying to look for a job. But she had this fancy cell phone, all this jewelry. She was Hispanic. And she had a cart full of food. Like, okay, she's got food stamps too. You can see her, she pulled out her card, boom, food stamps. So I go through and I get my stuff and I'm on my way out to the car, and I notice, like, I got a Ford Taurus, right? 2000, was it 98? It was a 98 or a 2000 Ford Taurus. Rusty, black, not in the greatest of shape, but it was mine. I paid for it, it was my car. And then I look over where she's at, and she's loading up her groceries into a Cadillac Escalade, the groceries she just bought with a damn food stamps card. And that's when it hit me about, like, what is really going on in this country that I'm struggling. I'm unemployment. On unemployment, I'm struggling. I don't want food stamps, but she's getting food stamps and she's got a Cadillac Escalade. How is that even possible? And the more you delve into it, then you find all these programs, all these back doors, and you start finding out why illegals are coming to this country, because they can live like that. They don't have to work. They can go out there and get a Cadillac Escalade. They can have the government pay for their housing. They can have the government pay for their food. They can even get loans done to get vehicles like she got. And it's just, you start delving deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and you find out the disgusting unfairness in this country. To the Mexicans who are born and raised here, we grew up here. There should be a certain amount of entitlement to us as Americans. But yet, people who come here across the border who are distant relations, they're not my people. I am related to them in some way because I'm Hispanic, but Americans are my people before they are. I would rather Americans be taken care of first than illegal immigrants. But this is the whole thing of putting me down this conservative path. Understanding that my beliefs are actually very conservative. And then later on down the road, discovering I'm more of a conservative libertarian. I kind of fall in line with those people like Ben Shapiro, he's a libertarian conservative, and Steven Crowder, he's a libertarian conservative. It's, I'm very conservative on certain things, and I'm very in the middle on other things. So that's just where it comes from. But it's just, when you actually look into it and look into these situations, you start agreeing with people and realizing, I don't agree with this. I don't agree with these liberals. I don't agree with these Democrats. Nothing that they are doing is helping Hispanics. Nothing. Everything that they do makes Hispanics dependent upon the government to feed them, to clothe them, to get them cars. It just doesn't make any sense. And the disturbing thing for me is I listen to other conservative Hispanics out there. There's the conservative Mexican, my name but flip-flopped. And then there's the conservative Latina. And there was this Adriana, I'm sorry if I'm saying her name wrong. But listening and finding out that this is not an isolated incident. People are seeing this. Hispanics around the country are seeing this. And they're seeing all this stuff happening going, I was born and raised here. This is nonsense. Mexicans here in the U.S., I was raised that you need to get up off your butt and you need to work. If you want something, you gotta work for it. I started working when I was 17 years old. And I've heard a lot of other conservative Hispanics out there that are on YouTube going, yeah, I started working when I was 16. I started working when I was 15. I got a work permit, so I can go out and work. And what really bothers us, I think, us conservative Mexicans and Hispanics, is the fact that these people are coming across the border and they're living life better than we are. And we were taught for our whole lives to work and work hard. And these people come across the border and they just get stuff handed to them. I think that bugs me on a very powerful level. I think it bugs a lot of other Hispanics out there. And those Hispanics just happen to be conservatives. Like, why do they get to come over here and live a high off the hog where I have to bust my butt every single day, where I have to get up at 6 a.m., work a 10 to 12 hour shift to be able to afford ramen noodles at the end of the day, if I'm lucky? It's sad. It's disgusting. It's a problem. It's a very serious problem in this country. But that does it for me. This has been the Daily Brief. with me, the Mexican Conservative. If you like what I'm saying, and if you like what I'm expressing here, I would suggest you go and find, there's the other gentleman, is the Conservative Mexican. Remember, take my name, Flip Flop It. There's also the Conservative Latina out there. She's also a good one to listen to. She's pretty funny from a few things that I've seen of her so far. And then it's Adriana Jade. She's also another conservative, a Hispanic female. If you like me, go check them out. They seem pretty awesome. I mean, they make some good points, and they are pretty down-to-earth people. So I look for them. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, obviously on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Thank you for listening. And remember, we are here, and we are here because we disagree.